Well, what caused the moon craters? Asteroids or Noah's flood? Please, we've been taught so many lies, and that this global flood event never took place. Really? The moon, the craters, how can it be all linked? Watch this. This is what we've been taught. Okay? Okay. Let's start.
Year to year, the moon never seems to change. Craters and other formations appear.
You see, look at all those holes, those craters. It looks like somebody's got a machine gun here on Earth and you know what happened? Let's watch.
to be permanent now, but the moon didn't always look like this. Thanks to NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, we now have a better look at some of the moon's history. The moon likely started its life as a giant ball of magma formed from the remains of an impact on Earth about 4.5 billion years ago. After the hot material collected into a sphere, the magma began to cool, eventually forming a crust on the surface of the moon with the magma just underneath. Around 4.3 billion years ago, a giant impact battered the moon's south pole, forming the South Pole Aitken Basin and sending debris as far as the opposite side of the moon. This impact marked the beginning of a period that would cause large-scale changes to the moon's surface. One by one, more huge collisions shaped the terrain, some forming large basins that would eventually fill in to be.
Now, you see the time here. See, billion years ago. And this is how the craters formed and everything you see. Really? Okay. So, wow, how many craters there? So, let's look at these three theories. Please. If we go to the book of Genesis, where it talks about the flood, okay? Genesis 7, okay? Verse 11. It says, in the 600th year of Noah's life, in the second month, on the 17th day of the month, on that day, all the fountains of the great deep burst forth. No, burst, supersonic speed, and the windows of heavens were opened. Okay, now, there's two theories. The Pangean theory of all the continents, when you see it in a map, it looks like they've been stuck together before. And some kind of event, they separated. Okay? And another theory is a comet. A comet passed at the same time while the Earth wobbled and the flood started. So, my theory in this part, okay, I'm gonna tell you. See, the fountains of the great deep burst forth. So imagine all the supersonic strength of all the fountains spreading up. Okay. And if it goes at enough supersonic speed, you imagine all those rocks underneath the crust and everything. Once it get up in the atmosphere, it turns icy. Or if it goes through the atmosphere out into space, into in between the cold and the heat. Maybe those are the craters we see in the moon. But that's my kind of theory. What I'm hearing other two theories, that I want you to hear right now. Please. This is one of them. Okay? Please. Dr. K.Hovind.
Then I think what happened, Noah's in there safe and sound. A 300-degree below zero ice meteor comes flying through space and starts to crack up in space. Some of the fragments become rings around the planets. Some of them make craters. A chunk of ice would hit a planet, make a crater, and then later vaporize and disappear, leaving behind the hole, but no evidence of what hit it. Ice would.
This is craters on Mercury. Okay? Please. Wait. Let me fix this so you can see all the screen. Okay?
Do that, okay? Some planets have rings around them. At least 4 planets have these ice rings. And they're made of not only ice, but also rock and ice. Now, Walt Brown thinks that the rings around the planets came from Earth. He thinks the fountains of the deep broke open and shot stuff up into space. He thinks the comets flying around through space came from Earth. Good theory. I don't know if you could prove that or not, but it's have to go pretty fast to get away from Earth's gravity, you know. But you get supersonic stuff shooting out of the ground from, you know, rocks blasting up from the fountains of the deep. It's a good theory. Could be true. I don't know. But these comets flying around through space are certainly super cold ice. As this sections of the comet, or maybe the tail of the comet, got close to the Earth, it would be sucked in because of the Earth's magnetic field. It would be deflected mostly to the north and south poles. So the Earth got hit mostly around the poles. Some fragments might make it through, the big ones might make it through, and actually leave behind craters that after the flood would still be visible. Maybe eroded some from the flood, but there could be craters. I don't know if the Yucatan Peninsula crater is an example of that, but there could be craters, or the big one in Quebec, Canada, 47 miles across. Something huge hit Quebec, left a 47-mile crater. That could be from this ice, I don't know. But also, super cold ice is easily statically charged. We have a Van de Graaff generator at our place, so you can go over there and stick your hand on there and poof, make your hair stand up. You've all seen those before, right, in physics class? A lot of fun. Come on over and you can try ours. Well, here's my theory. I think a super cold ice meteor came toward Earth, broke apart. Most of the fragments landed on the poles. This caused the Earth to wobble, cracked the crust, released the fountains of the deep. The canopy overhead then would collapse because super cold air coming off of this ice cap, just like when you open the freezer, you can see the cold air flow out. Well, cold air is like we get the Canadian winds come down, you know, and from Canada and freeze the people down in Texas primarily. There are cold fronts that move off of big masses of cold ground. That would happen at the time of the flood and for the next few hundred years, actually, from this ice cap sending off these cold waves. They're still coming today, actually. Scientists just discovered here a few years ago, there are still massive amounts of ice hitting the Earth all the time. Earth gets clobbered by big chunks of ice as big as a house. It melts in space and ends up coming down just as moisture, but we're getting a lot of ice and water added to the Earth from this phenomenon. I think this is remnant ice floating around from 4,400 years ago at the time of the flood. This article talks about water everywhere in space. Finding lots of chunks of water, amounts of water and chunks of ice in outer space. Now, when they went, this map shows the North Pole kind of from a strange view. It shows Greenland down at the bottom lower right and Russia to the upper left. But it shows what the North Sea would look like without the water in it. There's an island up there.
Oh, that is what his theory of the moon and the rings around the planet and all the craters you see in the moon and Mercury are done because of a comet that passed in the same time as Noah's flood. So you might have seen that we have a green comet passing through these days. And listen, when it passes through the sun, it makes the sun do something. Look at this. This is now, nowadays, today.
New video to take a look at to actually see the progression of this. And also, I've learned that this thing comes by every 5.3 years. So there have been other passings of this comet, and I actually found that comet on HelioViewer by backtracking to 2017, which is the last time this comet made an approach towards the sun, but it's only seen within a few frames because of the angle and trajectory of it at that time. Clearly, this pass we're looking at right now is much clearer. We could see every bit of it, but we also took a look at some weird anomalies that were taking place. And oh, trust me, I found another one that seems very odd. The timing of it is incredible. We'll take a look at that in just a moment. But this thing is causing CMEs left and right. In fact, the biggest of which just took place hours ago. This thing was massive. I mean, take a look at this blast. This is a huge CME that came off the sun because of this comet. It's actually been proven, and I spoke about this yesterday, even Suspicious Observers channel mentioned this, that as these comets approach the sun begins to react. And take a look at this chart here just to give you an idea of how big this latest CME was. Luckily, this was not Earth facing. In fact, Earth is the yellow dot you see to the right, and this basically fired off the back end of the sun. But the point is that this comet is the reason for it. So basically,
see how the comet did something. So that's what Mr. Hovind is trying to explain with all the craters of the moon and everything. There's another theory that he says that he doesn't know. It's a good theory. And that's when the waters of the deep opened and everything gushed up. That's the one that I think could be, But listen. Listen to this. This is the other theory of Dr. Walter Brown. It's only 5 minutes he talks. Please listen to him. This is the evidence. Look, this. You think this is Noah's Ark? Mount Ararat, 300 cubic meters, as the Bible says. And the anchor stones. And please, look at this. Evidence for the flood.
17 very strange features which can now be systematically explained as a result of a cataclysmic global flood whose waters erupted from subterranean chambers with an energy release exceeding the explosion of 10 billion hydrogen bombs. This explanation shows us just how rapidly major mountains formed. It explains the coal and oil deposits, the rapid continental drift, why on the ocean floor there are huge trenches and hundreds of canyons and volcanoes. It explains the formation of the layered strata and most of the fossils, the frozen mammoths, the so-called ice ages, and major land canyons, especially the Grand Canyon. The pre-flood Earth probably had only one very large supercontinent covered with lush vegetation. There were...
The thing is that this theory of one supercontinent is the Pangean theory. You see the map, said it before, that all the maps of the world, it looks like every country fits like a jigsaw puzzle. But I don't think this Pangean theory is correct, but the rest of what he says, listen to it.
Seas and major rivers. The mountains were smaller than today's, but perhaps 9,000 feet high. According to the hydroplate theory, the pre-flood Earth had a lot of subterranean water, about half of what is now in our oceans.
See? Chambers of water here, underneath the oceans. See? Underneath the crust. There's like reservoirs, chambers. Now, please, look at this. Look at this. In the book of Psalms, okay? The sovereignty of the Lord in creation and history. Now look at this. By the word of the Lord the heavens were made, and all the host of them by the breath of his mouth. He gathers the waters of the sea together. As a heap, he lays up the deep in storehouses. Storehouses. Wow. Wow. Is it true? Well, look at this. Hidden in Earth's crust are vast stores of groundwater. Wow. Los Angeles Times. There are 6 quintillion gallons of water hidden in the Earth's crust. Wow. Pockets of water may lie deep below Earth's surface. The vast reservoir hidden in Earth's crust that holds as much water as blah 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 blah. Massive ocean discovered towards Earth's core. Listen, pockets of water. Earth's crust are vast stores of groundwater. Wow. He layups the deep in storehouses. He gathers the waters of the sea together as a heap. Heap. Something of large quantity of it. That's what heap means. So he gathers the waters of the seas of the deep in storehouses. Wow. Let's continue.
Water was contained in interconnected chambers, forming a thin spherical shell about half a mile thick, perhaps 10 miles below the Earth's surface. Increasing pressure in the subterranean water stretched the crust just as a balloon stretches when the pressure inside increases. Failure in the crust began with a microscopic crack which grew in both directions at about 3 miles per second. The crack, following the path of least resistance, encircled the globe in about 2 hours. As the crack raced around the Earth, the overlying rock crust opened up like a rip in a tightly stretched cloth. The subterranean water was under extreme pressure because of the weight of the 10 miles of rock pressing down on it. So the water exploded violently out of the rupture. All along this globe-encircling rupture, fountains of water jetted supersonically, almost 20 miles into the atmosphere.
Now you see that water gushing out. Okay. And how much amount of speed would that be? Huh? So you imagine taking all the rocks and everything from here and gushing it out in supersonic speed and going out of the atmosphere, and those turn into hard rock and hitting the moon. Or you think a comet passed and made all those rings in Saturn and Jupiter and all the craters in Mercury and water in Mars?
Into the atmosphere.
That huge global event.
The spray from this enormous fountain produced torrential rains, such as the Earth has never experienced before or after. The Bible states that all the fountains of the great deep burst open on one day. And it describes these events about 5,000 years ago, which we can now tie together scientifically. Some of the water jetting high above the cold stratosphere froze into supercooled ice crystals and produced some massive ice dumps.
And that is the birth of the Ice Age.
Burying, suffocating, and instantly freezing many animals, including the frozen mammoths of Siberia and Alaska. The high-pressure fountains eroded the rock on both sides of the crack, producing huge volumes of sediments that settled out of this muddy water all over the Earth. These sediments trapped and buried plants and animals, forming the fossil record.
Yep.
This erosion widened the rupture. Eventually, the width was so great that the compressed rock beneath the subterranean chamber sprung upward, giving birth to the mid-oceanic ridge that...
Now this is the mid-Atlantic ridge. See? These are the continents. This is Europe. This is Gibraltar down here in Spain. Africa, the continents of America. This is the Atlantic Ocean. This is the huge scar in the ocean floor. Yeah, but no, there's no evidence.
Wraps around the Earth like the seam of a baseball. The continental plates, the hydroplates, still with lubricating water beneath them, slid downhill away from the rising mid-Atlantic ridge. After the massive, slowly accelerating continental plates reached speeds of about 45 miles per hour, they ran into resistances, compressed, and buckled. The portions of the hydroplate that buckled down formed ocean trenches. Those that buckled upward formed mountains. This is why the major mountain chains are parallel to the oceanic ridges from which they slid. The hydroplates, in sliding away from the oceanic ridges, opened up very deep ocean basins into which the floodwaters retreated. On the continents, each bowl-shaped depression or basin was naturally left brimful of water, producing many post-flood lakes.
The demonstrations you have just witnessed of a massive worldwide catastrophe in antiquity supports the biblical story of the deluge in every detail.
All right, that's Walt Brown's hydroplate theory, which I think is excellent. A couple key things he talks about in there is that the canyons had to form quickly as lakes overflowed their boundary. But the other thing is about the mid-Atlantic ridge. What would cause that? This picture...
Now, that's one great illustration of what happened. See? And the Grand Canyon. Look at this.
Welcome to Creation Minute. I'm D.R.K.Hovind. The Grand Canyon. 277 miles long, 10 to 18 miles wide, and more than a mile deep. That's impressive. In the bottom is the Colorado River. You know, some scientists suggest the Colorado River formed the Grand Canyon over millions of years. But take a look at these facts to see it from a different perspective.
Yeah, right.
The Colorado River exits the canyon 1,800 feet above sea level. It enters the canyon 2,800 feet above sea level, and the top of Grand Canyon is 7,000 feet above sea level. So you tell me, did the river flow uphill for millions of years to carve out the Grand Canyon? Or is it possible that the Grand Canyon is the result of Noah's flood? To learn more about creation, visit.
Yeah. Can you see it? Can you put it together? Huh? Why do everyone try to dismiss this? Come on. Look at this. They find the sixth ocean in the Earth's crust. Come on. It's beneath the Earth's surface. See? They find the rare diamonds made of water. Listen, there's so much more that I can show you here, but listen, all of this, like a 50 million year old shoe print found in a lump of coal. 50 million year old. Are you sure? How can that be? A footprint in a coal?
I wanted to share with you a rather special out-of-place
Because that was formed by the flood, and there used to be people before the flood.
artifact. It's known as the Fisher Canyon footprint, and it's actually a lump of coal. However, this small lump of coal is something very special. It's an artifact we hold dear to our hearts here at Mystery History. Since its discovery in the early 1900s by a man named John T. Reed, a character we have actually covered in the past, it has been silencing skeptics and evolutionists the world over. John T. Reed was the man responsible for confirming native Indian legends of a race of red-headed giants that once terrorized the American continent some 13,000 years ago. When John found the Fisher Canyon footprint, he reported it to the New York Sunday American. The coal layer in which the fossil was found was dated at over 15 million years ago.
Yeah, right.
Microscopic photography that was carried out by the Rockefeller Institute, presumably attempting to discredit the find, actually
Exactly. The Rockefellers, rulers of the world.
confirmed that it was indeed a heel print of a hand-stitched shoe, and that the fossil seemed to show the presence of 2 rows of stitches along the
On a piece of coal. Come on. Yeah? Please. 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 Look at this.
The Bible says at the end of time, in 2 Peter chapter 3, it says there will be scoffers who will be ignorant of the creation, the flood, and the coming judgment. A lot of people criticize the Bible over the flood story. The Bible says the earth was completely covered in water, completely covered. It also says to get that water, the fountains of the deep were broken open. Water from inside the crust of the earth came to the surface. When God first made the world, if you read Genesis chapter 1, he made the earth with water under the crust of the earth. It says the earth was in the water and out of the water. The water that was under the crust came shooting to the surface along the cracks. The earth cracked up like an eggshell. We still have the cracked scars today. They're called fault lines. They're all over the world. Some of those fault lines are still moving. Some move sideways, some move up down. Occasionally you get one where you have a subduction plate, it's called, where a plate of the earth that may be 10 miles thick is sliding under another one. These subduction zones are interesting. It is pulling the surface rock, which would be cooler, down into the center part of the earth. They found one spot where the cool rock had slid down 500 miles into the center part of the earth, and it's still cool. Now hold it. Some people want me to believe the earth is billions of years old. This rock would indicate it's only a few thousand years old. How long would it take for cold rock down inside hot rock to heat up and join their neighboring temperature? Not millions of years, that's for sure.
See, those hard rocks is what I think. That when the fountains of the deep opened, and burst open, like when a woman bursts open when she's having a baby, and the water goes, boosh. You imagine the fountains of the deep throwing all those rocks up and hitting all those craters that we see up in the moon. That's the theory that I think more rather than a comet. But listen, if you put the three together, it could all be in one great event.
Earth is broken up into plates. The plates are still moving. I think that's all from Noah's flood. NASA has shown there are huge slabs of cold rock inside the crust of the Earth. What is this about? Well, I think this is all left over from the flood in the days of Noah, 4,400 years ago. The water coming in at 900 miles an hour would knock down all the trees and make a layer of coal. Then the next tide, or the tide going out 6 hours later, is going to make another layer of trees or logs or debris, and you might end up like this picture with multiple layers of coal.
Look at this. Come on.
All nice stacked on top of each other like pancakes. And the carbon-14 in every one of these layers is identical. All these layers are the same age. I think they all formed at the time of the flood. But the Bible says the scoffers will be ignorant of that flood. It's interesting, nearly all the major mountain ranges in the world follow the coastlines. But as the mountains are lifting up, the rock layers, these layers that are going to become rock, they're all mud right now, they're going to all be bent, like this picture shows. Bent rock layers are found all over the world. Some of them are just beautiful, gorgeous. Now hold it. If you look at them very closely, you will see they're not fractured, they're not cracked. If these layers are truly different ages, the bottom one's going to be hard rock, then the next one's going to be mud. And when they bend, well, the mud will bend, but the rock is going to crack. But these are all the way down, bent, nice, smooth, bent rock layers. No fractures internally. That means all the layers were soft when they were bent at the same time. These bent rock layers all over the world are clear evidence that the flood formed those layers quickly. You're going to be taught in school that the layers of the earth are different ages, and they've got names for them, the Jurassic and Triassic and Mississippian and Devonian, Cretaceous era and all that stuff. The whole thing is baloney. There is no geologic column anywhere in the world. All those layers are the same age.
Exactly. Oh. Are you trying now to get more or less, the picture? Why do they lie so much? When you start putting these things together, this is the history of us, not the history that men tells us. See, for God says that the witness of men is great, but the witness of God is greater. And all this is the witness of God. Wow. So, listen. I'll show you. Look at this. Okay. These scars, the tectonic plates, it's everywhere. The fountains of the deep burst forth. See? All of those are the scars. All of those are the scars. Listen, I hope that you're seeing the comet that's going out now, that's in green. It's making effects when it passes through the sun. And how did those mammoths, the big elephant mammoth, was standing still with the green food on the throat? Like something compressed it down. See, the waters of the great blue, can say, burst open, and when it came down as the Ice Age. Listen, when you put those things together, it's all related to Noah's flood. Even if it's the comet or the rocks from bursting up from the crust of the earth are responsible for those holes in the moon. Well, yeah, now we have a different perspective. We also get a shoe print in a lump of coal. Coal is the remnants of the leaves and trees and everything that they say that's millions of years ago. Yep. So, listen, it's proven that there's an ocean underneath the ocean, underneath the Earth's crust. See? Pockets of water. Vast stores of groundwater. And in Psalms, it says he gathers the waters of the sea together as a heap, see, as great quantity. He lays up the deep in storehouses. Vast stores have been found of groundwater and storehouses. Chambers. Oh, it's even in the news. Look at this.
A new study has shown that nearly about 3 times the amount of water that is found in the ocean actually lies under the Earth's crust. A new international study says that most of Earth's water is in fact just below the crust, where tectonic plates are said to be present. Now, the team studied a diamond that was formed about 660 meters below the Earth's surface to come to this conclusion. The subduction zone, a tectonic plate, is in fact pulled into the Earth's mantle due to the convection currents. Usually the plates melt and the molten rock comes out in the form of lava through volcanoes. But sometimes the plates just don't melt. Now, scientists say that there is a graveyard of plates that is located in some subduction zones, such as beneath Europe. Now, the plates beneath the surface carry deep-sea sediments and dense minerals, which could store a large amount of water.
Study more water underground than in seas. Oh. Come on. He gathers the waters of the sea together as a heap. A quantity. Large quantity of it. He lays up the deep in storehouses. Yeah. But this event, and this is not Noah's Ark. Even though it's 300 cubic meters, as the Bible says, mountains of Ararat, and all of the anchor stones with 8 crosses from the family of 8. And everywhere you see the fossil record. Listen, when they say, it's funny, because when they say the fossil records, you know, the one down from the fossil records are mostly marine fossils, because when the fountains of the deep and the Great Flood happened, you know, the fish were the first ones there, you know, then the land animals and and this and that, you know. It's there, you know. I don't know why people want to eliminate God if he's promising a new earth and a new life without dying. I don't understand why they don't want that to happen. What? They want this life only? Die in the cemetery, and that's all there is. But yet again, you hear everybody say, when I die, I want to be with my people. Be there, and I'm going to be here. See? So, they don't believe in God. They don't want to believe in God. They don't want this to be true. But yet again, when they die, they're going to be here and there. Wow. Where are they getting that from? If they don't believe in anything. Wow. Oof. I would be scared to make sure I'm going to be somewhere if I know that I'm not doing anything in the life that's making God happy. The Bible, basic instructions before leaving earth, is an instruction book that no one follows. Everybody wants to be saved by their own knowledge of what is saved. But the book of the Bible is an instruction book of how you must be saved. So, listen. Wow. Yeah. So, I hope, that you like this And you can see now from a different perspective, you know. What? Those holes in the moon. What? So I'm gonna make sure that showing you everything. Well, I could show you the whole speech that they say, but it's more than 2 hours, you know. I'm just picking up a few minutes of each so you more or less understand the tectonic plates or the continents or this and that, or the theory of one about the comet and how the rings of the planet and the craters, or the other theory on the fountains of the deep and it expelled the rocks that you see there. So, listen, if the moon disappears, we disappear. You know, if evolution is true, evolution is not very clever. You know, it's not going to put the risk of the moon being bombarded by millions of years ago with the risk of disappearing. Imagine the tides and the waters. Ooh, yeah. So, okay, listen, I'm going to do another one tomorrow or Saturday about Jesus in the prophecies about 2,000, 3,000 years before he even came. And in the alphabet in the beginning was the Word. Yeah? And the Word was with God. And the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. Love you all.